today during our session of The Veil, a cyberpunk game powered by the Apocalypse and produced by Semjoko Publishing. Something we've been saying for a very long time in real time, certainly compared to how much time has been represented in playtime. Something we've been saying for a long time came true. And what we've been saying is, Cadmus is dying. We've been saying it in various emotions and states. But today was the day. Today was the line drawn. Beyond this point, Cadmus was not going to pass. And so, Ivan Mike, 1968, had to run this session. His last for the Veil. And I'm up next. Freed of any consideration of running character except the legacy left behind by the playbook of Cadmus, which has an interesting section called Open at the Close. And that will potentially play some role in what happens next. We'll have to see. So, Session 6 is a major challenge, I would expect, for Ivan to undertake. Right. He has to preside over events that we know must happen. And so there was a lot of joking and whatnot at the beginning about how he was a railroad GM and we were all just being herded where he wanted us to go and stuff, to try and lighten the mood. I think some of us have gotten attached to the concept of Cadmus dying, not Cadmus actually having to face that death. And what kind of death would it be? Would it be, cut down by enemy forces? Would it be, taken away for experimentation? Would it be forcibly uploaded by the Veil, or who knows what else? And so I had the ability, because of the way this game works, to exert my ideas out into how I saw his death coming, and work that in with what was happening around Cadmus in the fiction of the session. It wasn't an easy session, but then again, it was quite relaxed, as was the previous one. Like I said in the last recap, we were making no pretense about trying to fancy up the use of moves. We don't play enough, so we've accepted the fact that we don't play the game enough to be really skillful at the deployment of moves in terms of the language we use, and recognize that that has happened. So rather than give ourselves undue stress about it, we're not. And over time, we're picking some things up anyway. But playing the game, shifting strongly between out-of-character moments and in-character moments, has been working for us. We feel better. We have stronger ties to what's going on. So that's been nice, and it's something that I hope to continue when I take over as the MC. The session itself picked right up where the last one left off, so our characters were getting toward the raggedy edge emotionally. And we're getting into territory that we haven't explored before as a result. Longer sessions would have brought us into contact with that state, that kind of strung out, worn out, frayed emotional state much earlier in our play. But it's now that we're coming to the point where reuse of a particular state, right, constant drawing upon that emotion, will lock you into that emotion in this game. That's called a spike. And it requires a special move called Alleviate to break you from it. And basically what it does is it makes one of your emotional states the be-all and end-all of everything. The states are like mad and peaceful and joyful and scared and powerful. And one of them will be maxed out while the others are all at -1. So you become kind of like a freight train continuing on in this motion, becoming manic or or whatever. So for the character of Yorn, played by Same Old G, that meant entering that state of peaceful. He became kind of placid and accepting of everything. And we didn't handle this absolutely correctly. There were two things that happened in the scene which really needed to be addressed by Alleviate. And in a sense, we kind of glossed over Alleviate, kind of implying that it was going on and it would happen later. But for the sake of playing the game and learning the game, I would have liked to have seen it. But this particular session ended up in a very interesting space because Cadmus is dying, and he and Yorn have become as attached as people as Cadmus and Tess had become, although for very different reasons. Our emotional templates align up in different ways, but nonetheless, Jean-Francois and I could feel that these characters were becoming important to each other. They were becoming real friends, honest friends. And you can see the decline in Cadmus's health hour by hour, and you can see all these strange things happening to him and him having to deal with them, and him becoming more and more convinced that maybe there's hope, there's something he can do, and Yorn wants to be a part of that, and all of this stuff. So it comes to the point where the character of Yorn wants to trade. He wants to sacrifice himself for Cadmus. And he has the ability to communicate directly with the Veil, the computer intelligence, which is the interface for every living being in the city, that provides an AR overlay over everything, every sense, augmented or muted or changed in some way by your interaction with the Veil. So he has a way to speak to it directly, and he chooses to try and preach to it, trying to show it that there's a different way, and that Cadmus should be spared, and he's willing to lay down his own life. Transfer the disease that is killing my friend to me, and I'll take it. It was a pretty cool scene, which then became a use of the mechanics. And I was really impressed by drawing on this particular mechanic. He tries to use the move called Sway. And it may have been good to use Sway, or it may have been good to use Ultimatum, but ideally, he's now saying, I'm playing a very persuasive character. This is something that the character is good at, right? He's a street preacher. He convinces people. He changes people's lives. And so this machine is going to listen to me. So I'm going to use Sway. And I'm in this state, and I've got all these advantages, and everything was working for him, and he gets this incredibly successful role, a role which will rewrite a significant portion of events. He has exactly the success he wants, but what he wants is to transfer this condition that is killing Cadmus to himself. And in normal circumstances, such as if this dying condition were a tag, for example, there would be no question. The target of the Sway move would do what was asked of it and ask for whatever price it needs to make that happen. That's how the move works. It's not up to the game master to say, yes, it works, or no, it doesn't. The dice tell you it does or it doesn't. It's up to all the players there to figure out how. Well, it's not an NPC. It's not a tag. It's my character, and I have chosen to play the playbook of the dying. And I have chosen not to have a character going forward. Right? As I go into sessions 7, 8, and 9, I don't need a character. We don't need, from my point of view, to save Cadmus. And I want to play Cadmus through to the end. If Jean-Francois's sway move is successful, then I'm denied that. So here we have a point where the player is asking for something that the target cannot give. Kind of like trying to use sway on a junkie passed out in an alley and saying, "Give me a jet plane," and and rolling successes, and the junkie has to provide you with a jet plane, and that's not really how the move works. Now, I think that he did everything right, and I really like how Ivan handled it, and it ended up in a place where I was given the choice. I was free to choose to accept this success, to accept a shift in playbook. Cadmus survives, and something happens to the character of Yorn. Now, I chose to double down on specifying exactly what it was that was being offered as an answer to the success of the sway move, and that it was my choice. And then we moved forward from there. But it was really interesting, and there's a couple of moments we were interrupted by dog explosions where we ended up interrupting the game and having a post-game mechanics chat right then and there. And in this particular case, that's likely what we should have done anyway. We should have stopped and talked about how we wanted to implement it. But there was a momentum. We wanted to go forward, and it's probably our instinct to rely on the game master at that point, the MC, to make a ruling. So it was interesting interplay between fiction, between mechanics, between impulse and instinct, and between habit, because where I think Jean-Francois is coming from as a gamer in situations like this is similar to a video he released the other day about always say yes. This is something I think from his point of view needed to just happen. And I think he felt balked by the way it came out. And so I worked pretty hard in the rest of that session to try and get him to understand how important what he had done was, and that he had been successful. But we'll see how that goes. And I have some pretty interesting ideas for how to start Session 7 as a result of all of this stuff. So yes, as intimated at the beginning, this was the session in which Cadmus was taken by his disease, and he had a chance to strike a blow, to strike back, to get some sense of revenge, to have some sense of independence, to regain some sense of control of his life back, a life that had been taken away. And there's a hint, a rumor, a wisp, maybe, of possibility that he was spared the fate that he so hated because of his friend's sacrifice. And that, I think, is a beautiful thing. And so the Veil gave us, at this midpoint in the story, and we were talking about how Ivan's section of the story was reminding us of the role that Empire Strikes Back plays in the original Star Wars trilogy. It gives us that bittersweet ending, that sense of, well, what? Wait, that's the end? What's next? And I appreciate being able to build from that. Who knows what my sessions of the Veil will bring, but today it was really interesting to feel this much in control of how the game was being played and see such skillful play of it from Jean-Francois and from Ivan. And it gives me hope and a strong feeling about going forward and finishing off the series. So, until next time.